Welcome to another book review by Knowledge Merchants. These are your hosts, Nyanyue and Omane Okra. Today, the book that we are reviewing is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
A great book.
It's an amazing, I think it's one of my favorite books of all time. Yeah. First, we'll describe the book, we'll describe the characters in the book, we'll delve into the plots, and then we'll wrap it up. It's a very small, short book. I believe that if you pick up this book, you can wrap it up in a day. So, Omane, let's begin by the book in one sentence.
The book in one sentence. I mean, that's going to be very difficult. But I think in a few sentences, what I'll say about The Alchemist is it's a book about the journey of one Santiago from Spain to Egypt, just to realize that the real treasure was always at home. It picks up from, or seems to draw inferences from Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. So he realized that the focus is not necessarily on getting the treasure, but the focus is on the wisdom gains in the journey to the treasure, because the wisdom in the journey actually is what reveals the treasure. And I think that's the core essence.
Okay, so now let me try and summarize the book. As we've already mentioned, the main character in the book is the young shepherd boy from Indonesia, Santiago. We have his sheep, which are also main characters in the book. We have the baker's daughter. We have the gypsy woman. Then he meets Melchizedek, the king of Salem. And then we have the Englishman, and finally, the alchemist himself. I guess we can also talk about Fatima, his lover, and I think another thing that's important are the men of the desert, because these are the people who test Santiago. Now, a recurring dream troubles Santiago. The dream happens every time he sleeps under a sycamore tree that grows in the ruins of his church. Now, during the dream, a child tells him to seek a treasure at the foot of the Egyptian pyramids. Now, Santiago consults a gypsy woman. This gypsy woman is supposed to help him interpret the dream. And to his surprise, she tells him that he has to actually go to Egypt. And on his way, he meets Melchizedek. Let's talk about Melchizedek.
Melchizedek has about 2 or 3 main things that he seeks to drive into Santiago's well-being. The first is to commit to your path, or commit to your legend. And then to not let others choose your path for you. They may guide you, but ultimately you choose. We are all here for a different reason, a unique purpose, though that purpose is interdependent. And then to not believe the world's lie, or the greatest lie, that is that at a certain point in our lives we lose control of our fate. So I think these are the 3 core things that Melchizedek brings to Santiago's journey.
I think another thing that Melchizedek represents is help. How do I say this? The aid of the universe. Now, usually you find that when you are pursuing something, at most points it feels as if it's bleak. But there is always a sense of hope that arises when you are in the path towards your personal legend. And Melchizedek himself described it as there are points in time when he appears to the one in pursuit of his personal legend as a king. There are points where he appears as a guardian angel, or as a person, sometimes even as an emerald, in which he describes himself. The story goes on to say that there was a young man who was mining, and he mined for so long that he got no luck in finding any gem. And then just when the man was about to give up, he picked up a large rock and threw it against a stone. When the stone hit a rock, that rock broke, and then he saw an emerald in there. So then it revived his hope, and then he was able to continue his personal journey. So Melchizedek represents people who aid you in continuous, and that's what you said.
Like me, okay, we also talked about meaningful synchronicity, what he calls omen. For example, you have something you are working on, you have a dream, you have an idea, like something you are holding, something you are crafting out. You realize that usually it just starts out very vaguely, and then as you move, the more you move towards the idea, it's almost as if there's this external force, this external help that's constantly guiding you on, because some of the things that happen along your path, the probability of those things occurring is like 1 in a million, but it seems to occur in the right time, the right place, the right framework, the right structure, and they seem to push you on to ultimately achieving the goal that you are trying to work towards. He awakens Santiago's mind to the role of omens, or the role of meaningful synchronicities.
So the general theme of Melchizedek is hope and guidance. Now we can proceed to what happens right after. after he sells the sheep, he is full of optimism. And what a lot of us miss is that optimism and enthusiasm blinds him to the evils of the world. Because now he walks into a bar.
In the scuffle of the moment, someone appears as he's the helper, and that helper is actually the deceiver. And he's not seeing the world as the world is. He's seeing the world as he wants the world to be. So he's caught up in his dream. And so when that quote unquote, that helper takes his money, he sort of follows blind and even gets distracted on the way. And once his attention comes back, boom, the guy's nowhere to be found. And that's when reality hits him that, you know what, on this journey, don't allow yourself to be fooled.
Over here, it is clear that the distractions can cause havoc. First, he is naive of the evils in the world, one, and then the evils in the world take advantage of his distraction. That's when he sees the sword, and then rob him blind. But here's the twist. Usually, the path is not straight. Eventually, you get to your personal legend, but the path is always meandering. So what happens after he's robbed? He is forced to go work for someone so that he can get the money back to go to Egypt. So now at this point, Omani, let's talk about the crystal merchants and what we can derive from that experience with him.
So I think the crystal merchant allows him to recalibrate himself and then reorient himself and awaken himself again back to the pursuit of his legend.
Undistracted.
Yes, it gives him about a 2 year. He worked for him for about 2 years.
He does.
And with that time, he built some strength, because the thing about adversity is that it doesn't take you away from the journey, but it builds your strength and your character towards the journey ahead.
There's something that I'd love for us to point out during this 1 year hiatus away from his journey. As he's changing himself, he's also changing the things around him and the people around him. As he's evolving, and I guess that's the primary theme of The Alchemist, because it talks about someone who's able to turn one material into gold, any material into gold. But in the book, essentially speaks about the evolution of yourself and the things around you. Because Santiago's life basically illustrates that entire purpose. So during this period with the merchants, he realizes that the merchant had a personal legend of his own. And being a Muslim, his personal legend was to go to Mecca, or to go on the pilgrimage that every merchant has done. Now, it's not because he doesn't have the means to do it, but he is essentially caught up in the dream of realizing this personal legend, that the dream alone is enough. And I guess that's one of the things that easily happen to us, where we dream and then we do not do.
Initially, you have the dream, but once you compromise the dream, it keeps on recurring with the omens, maybe for the first year, the second year, the third year, and by the fourth year,
you lose it.
And you come to the realization that, you know what, you missed out on your legend. So it's like there's a time frame or a time period within which that call, quote unquote, can be fulfilled.
Must be realized.
Or must be realized.
It must be realized speedily. We can borrow that towards our discretion and our intuition. This voice, or the Holy Spirit inside of you, or some people even call it vibe, it's sharp with exercise. When you stop listening to your intuition, when you decide no longer to discern, those omens, those synchronicities, that voice, the Holy Spirit speaking to you, begins to quiet down. And so exercising that is sharpening your sixth sense, and that's what these are the things that are necessary to help you realize your personal legend.
I think when you look at the dream Santiago had in the beginning, the dream is essentially he in the field with his sheep, and then a child comes and plays with the sheep, and the child takes him by his hand and leads him to the pyramids. The symbol here is that our legend is very clear to us when we are children. The key to your treasure is returning to your childhood. I think Robert Greene even talks about it in his book on mastery.
It does.
Yes, you return to what were the things that came at you easily, things that you loved when you were a child. Because in that state, you were that fearless, you are adventurous, you are not being touched by society's hand, and that's in your natural or your truest state of your core or your legend. So I believe that allegory to the child is there to remind all of us that the key to the treasure is to return to a childlike state.
We are going back to the story.
Great.
he decides to cash in his earnings after he works for the merchant and continue to pursue his personal legend and find the treasure in the pyramids. So he decides to join a caravan crossing the Sahara Desert towards Egypt, and then he meets an Englishman. Now, this Englishman is studying to become an alchemist. He learns a lot from the Englishman during the journey. And for one, he learns that the secret of alchemy is written on a stone called the Emerald Tablet. Now, Santiago learns from the Englishman traveling that the alchemist that they are looking for is across the oasis in, I don't remember what it's called. It's called Al Fayoum, where the 200-year-old alchemist is, and he, the Englishman, can learn from this. Now, the strange thing is, when they meet the Englishman, and I think this is something that we discussed earlier, that when the student is ready, the master appears. The Englishman is the one who sought to become the alchemist, but the Englishman had read it from books. Santiago, on the other hand, had learned the language of the universe. And this is what we call omen, synchronicity. Even he understands the language of the sheep. He understands the language of the desert. He understands the language of the falcons. And so if he finds out that
one's like a theorist, one's like a practitioner of the art.
Exactly. One is the embodiment of this learning, and the other one has just read it from books. So when they get to the oasis, guess who becomes the student of the alchemist?
Santiago actually becomes a better student, because then Santiago can actually connect to the alchemist. And also because, you see, the true lesson is not in the theory. The true lesson is being the learner, doing the actual thing. And then you realize that the lessons are in the journey. Anyone who pursues the doing to learn actually learns and understands more than anyone who pursues the path of just pure learning without doing.
Exactly. There are times when and this is something that I call analysis paralysis, where we sit on a subject so long, we outthink it, and then what happens is that we do not do.
That's right.
But the goal in life generally is to do and to learn.
No one is not enough.
Exactly. And we are not saying that you must experience all things to be the best person. Most times, actually, you stand on the shoulder of other people's experiences so that you can move further.
One of the best and fastest ways to just copy what has been done.
Copy and lead.
Can I give you the master key to
Est-ce que vous voulez la clé maîtresse pour accélérer la vitesse?
The master key of speed is copying.
La clé maîtresse pour accélérer la vitesse, c'est de copier quelqu'un.
Yes, copying.
Faut copier.
And that's another subject that we can delve into another time. So at a point, we realized that the caravan must pass to the oasis. And it's at this oasis, Al Fayoum, where he meets Fatima. The love of his life. Can you tell us about the wisdom of Fatima, Omane?
So Fatima is also like a symbol of wisdom. I mean, when you read several of the, should I say, ancient books, you can look at the Bible. Wisdom is symbolized as a feminine person. In the Bible, it's Sophia. Even you look at Eve. Although Eve led to the fall of man, you realize that she was the first person to be enlightened. You come to Greece, you would have Athena, who is the goddess of wisdom. She's the one that gives the idea of the Trojan horse. You look at the oracle that was at Delphi. That was a female temple, and it was the source of all Grecian wisdom. You come to Egypt, you look at the mythology around Ishtar, and I mean, it runs through several Asian cultures. So Fatima comes into his life, and Santiago seeks to build a residence or a domicile around her. And then she reminds him that if she's truly a fragment or an aspect of his dream, she can never be lost within the whole structure of his
pursuit of that dream.
Yes, so she being in his life is not to negate the pursuit of the dream. She's actually in his life to facilitate pursuit of the dream. So she sort of reorients Santiago's mind back to the original idea God has when he brings a woman to Adam. That the woman is not meant to delete the journey. She's only meant to question.
Not just delete, but distract.
So Fatima is that voice of wisdom that guides on or pushes Santiago a bit further. And in the end, her wisdom plays out beautifully because he pursues his dream and he gets her as part of the dream. Holistically.
That's wonderful.
If he had stayed with her, he'd have gotten her and he'd have missed out on that beautiful holistic picture that his legend was driving him towards.
While the Alchemist and Santiago continue through the deserts, the Alchemist shares much of his wisdom about the soul of the world. They are mere days away from the pyramids when a tribe of Arab soldiers capture them. Now, in exchange for his life and the life of Santiago, the Alchemist hands over to the tribe all of Santiago's money that he's made and tells the soldiers that Santiago is the Alchemist who will turn into wind within 3 days. And immediately Santiago feels alarmed because he has no idea how to turn himself into the wind. And over the next 3 days, he contemplates with the desert. Now, this for me is the climax of the book, and we will leave this part for you to go and find, to go and read on your own, so you can get the goosebumps that we all got. But the third day, he communicates with the wind, sun, and eventually he realizes that the voice that he's seeking to speak to that will guide him turn himself into the wind is within him. Christ in us, the hope of glory.
If I should give maybe a summary at the end, is the realization that the real treasure was always within him. It's a journey without to realize that what you needed was within.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. We've wrapped up the book. The journey without is to realize what you have within.
Yeah.
The Alchemist is an amazing book by Paulo Coelho, and we are going to end this book review on this note. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, Knowledge Merchants. We will come in
with us what you also gathered as you read the book, and if you haven't read it, we advise you to grab a copy, read, and then come back and share your comments with us.
Yes, we will be putting out videos like this every 2 weeks. Remember to share this with a colleague, with a friend, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you, and see you at the next book review.